Hi everyone. Today we are going to learn the subject international business. Simply, international trade means exchanging goods and services between people or entities in two different countries. Theories of international trade. Theories of international trade can be classified into two: classical country-based theories and the modern firm-based theories. Under classical country-based theories, we have four theories: mercantilism, absolute advantage theory, comparative advantage theory, Hexer-Oakland theory. And under modern firm-based theory, we have another four theories: country similarity, which is also known as income performance similarity theory, product life cycle theory, new trade theory, which is global strategic rivalry, national competitive advantage theory. In your text, it is mentioned in different way. This is correct. So learn this. The first theory, mercantilism. Adam Smith coined this term, mercantilism, and this theory states that a country's wealth was determined by the amount of its gold and silver holdings. In its simplest sense, we can say that mercantilists believe that a country should increase its holding of gold and silver by promoting export and discourage import. The objective of each country was to have a trade surplus, which means a situation where the value of exports are greater than the value of imports, and to avoid a trade deficit, or a situation where the value of import is greater than the value of exports. And mercantilism involves provide subsidy to export countries and the government investment in research and development to maximize capacity and efficiency of domestic industry. It allows copyright or intellectual theft from foreign companies, also for companies or countries. Expanded their wealth by using their colonies around the world. Example, the British colonial and the British colonial empire was one of the most successful examples, and they increased its wealth by using raw materials from places such as India and etc. Examples. Some examples are mentioned in our textbook. England's Navigation Act 1651 prohibited foreign vessels operating coastal trade. All colonial exports to Europe had to pass through England first and be re-exported to Europe. And the third one about sole tax revolt by Gandhiji. Under British Empire, India restricted in buying from domestic companies. Gandhiji protested against this, which led to salt tax revolt. Some criticisms of mercantilism. It weakens a country, and actually it is not a philosophy of increasing global wealth. It actually creates global problem. And it's a philosophy of zero-sum game, which means in which a gain by one country results in a loss by another one. It increases colonial exploitation and it provides provisions for exports and restricts imports, which means it leads to high tariffs on imports, which led to retaliation. And economies of scale from specialization are not possible here. Specialization is not possible here. In the modern world, mercantilism is associated with the following policies, such as first one is undervaluation of currency. By undervaluing the currency, it makes exports more competitive. Then government subsidy of industry for unfair advantage. China has been accused of offering too much subsidized investment for industry, and which leads to oversupply of industry. So other countries cannot able to compete. Then search of protectionist sentiments. Example, tariffs on import. To protect exports, countries are imposing tariffs on imports. Then copyright theft or intellectual theft. Copyright theft, I think you all know that, which means the use of copyright or use or production of copyright protected material without the permission of the copyright holder. So these are the major features or the policies Associated. Neo-mercantilism means it encourages exports, restricts imports, control capital movement, and centralizes currency decisions in the hands of government. And the policies associated with tariffs in support to domestic subsidies. For example, US government imposed tariffs on import of steel from China around 266%. They are imposing tariffs on imports on Chinese steel to protect domestic producers from unfair competition. The next policy is protection against dumping. If some countries have excess supply of goods, they can sell at very low price to get rid of surplus. But this can make domestic firms unprofitable. Protectionism can be justified to protect against this dumping. Then infant industry argument. For countries seeking to diversify their economy, tariffs may be justified to try and develop new industries. When industries have developed and benefit from the economies of scale, then the tariffs and the protectionism can be dropped. Next classical theory is absolute advantage theory. Adam Smith offered a new trade theory which is called as absolute advantage, which focused on the ability of a country to produce a good more efficiently than another nation. Smith reasoned that trade between countries shouldn't be regulated or restricted by government policy or intervention. He stated that trade should flow naturally according to market forces. And the specialization is a core concept here, which means the countries should specialize in the production of goods for which they have an absolute advantage and then trade these goods for the goods produced by the other countries. Okay, this is the core concept, that is specialization. For example, uh, suppose there are only two countries in a world, country A and B. If country A could produce a good or means a product cheaper than country B, then country A had the advantage and could focus on specializing on producing that particular product. Similarly, if country B was better at producing another good or another product, it would be better to focus on specialization as well. By specialization, countries would generate efficiencies because their labor force would become more skilled by doing the same task. Production would also become more efficient because there would be an incentive to create faster and better production methods to increase specialization. So, Smith's theory reasoned that with increased efficiencies, people in both countries would benefit and trade should be encouraged. His theory stated that a nation's wealth shouldn't be judged by how much gold and silver it had, but rather by the living standards of the people. The major assumptions of absolute advantage theory. The first assumption is the trade is in between two countries, and the next one, only two commodities are traded. Free trade exists between countries, and the last assumption is the element of cost of production is only labor. Other factors of production are not considered here. Advantages of absolute advantage theory. The first advantage is specialization. We have already discussed about the specialization. It is the core concept of this theory. So specialization of labor leads to higher productivity. Thereby, we can achieve low labor cost per unit of output. And the second one is the economies of scale. Economies of scale can be achieved due to the large scale of production by the countries, and this helps to reduce the labor cost per unit of output as well. So these are the major advantages of this theory. Criticisms of absolute advantage theory. The first one is there will be no absolute advantages for many countries. Some countries may be better at producing both goods, but some other countries may not have any absolute advantage. And the next one is transport cost is ignored here. Yes, here transport cost is neglected. And there will be country by country differences in specialization. Then fourth disadvantage is it deals with labor factor only. Other factors of production are neglected. These are the major criticisms of absolute advantage theory. The next classical theory is the theory of comparative advantage. The challenge to the absolute advantage theory was that there will be no absolute advantage for many countries. To answer this challenge, David Ricardo, an English economist, introduced the theory of comparative advantage in their 1870s. Ricardo reasoned that even if country A had the absolute advantage in the production of both products, specialization and trade could still occur between two countries. This is the essence of this theory. Comparative advantage occurs when a country cannot produce a product more efficiently than the other country. However, it can produce that product better and more efficiently than other countries. In other words, we can define the comparative advantage as the ability of a country to produce particular goods or services at lower opportunity cost as compared to the other countries in that area or in that field. This is known as the comparative advantage. The assumptions of the theory. Element of cost is only labor. Labor is the only factor of production, and the cost of production is measured in terms of labor units. The second one is labor is homogeneous. It means all units of labor are homogeneous. And there is free trade, and there will be no transportation cost, and there will be full employment in countries concerned. And the next assumption is the factors of production are perfectly mobile within the country but are perfectly immobile between two nations. And the comparative advantage theory is based on opportunity cost. It is the cost of next best alternative foregone by choosing an alternative. If a country is able to produce a product with lower opportunity cost than other nations, then we can say that the first country mentioned have the comparative advantage. And the major differences between absolute theory and the comparative theory is given there. Advantages are there is free trade and the labor is perfectly mobile. There will be no trade barriers and economies of scale can be enjoyed by the country due to the large scale of production. And major disadvantages of this theory are free trade will not be possible, trade barriers will be there, other factors of production are ignored, only labor is considered here. Assumption is the labor is homogeneous, actually the labor is heterogeneous, and full employment cannot be ensured, no similar taste and preferences, and this theory ignores transport cost, and it's one-sided theory, which means it considers only the supply side of international trade, and labor is used in varying proportion in the production of commodities. The next theory is Heckscher-Ohlin theory, which is also known as factor proportion theory. The theories of Adam Smith and Ricardo didn't help countries to determine which products would give a country an advantage. Both these theories assumed that free and open market would lead countries and producers to determine which goods they could produce more efficiently. In the early 1900s, two Swedish economists, Eli Heckscher and Bertil Ohlin, focused their attention on how a country could gain comparative advantage by producing products that utilized factors that were in abundance in the country, which means they stated that comparative advantage arises from the differences in national factor and domain. This theory is based on a country's production factors such as land, labor and capital, which provides the funds for the investments in plants and equipment. They determined that the cost of any factor or resource was a function of supply and demand. Factors that were in great supply relative to demand would be cheaper. Factors in great demand relative to supply would be more expensive. This theory is also called as factor proportion theory. Their theory is also known as factor proportion theory. Stated that countries will produce and export goods that required resources or factors that were in great supply and therefore cheaper production factors. In contrast, countries will import goods that required resources that were in short supply but higher demand. For example, India and China as large pools of labor-intensive countries. Hence, these countries have become optimal locations for labor-intensive industries like textiles, etc. The Leontief paradox. Vasily W. Leontief, in the early 1950s, studied the US economy closely and noted that US was abundant in capital and therefore should export more capital-intensive goods. However, his research using actual data showed the opposite thing. The US was importing more capital-intensive goods. According to factor proportion theory, the US should have been importing labor-intensive goods, but instead it was actually exporting them. His analysis became known as Leontief paradox because it was the reverse of what was expected by the factor proportion theory. And later, economics explained that it may be due to innovative technologies US was more productive than other nations. And maybe due to their innovative entrepreneurship and skilled labor, US may be exporting goods heavily while importing heavy manufacturing products that use large amount of capital. And this is known as the Leontief paradox.